So yeah, find what you love to do and then find a way to get paid for it. You'll never work a day in your life.
You're listening to Idea Charger Radio. Good day, Success Chargers. It is Scott Cooksey, and you're back here for another episode of the podcast. Certainly glad to have you listening today. Thank you so much for all of your continued support. Those 5-star reviews keep piling in at iTunes, and the numbers keep going up. That means you're enjoying the show, you're having a good time, and you are telling people about what you're hearing here and helping people learn how they too can become a Success Charger. Today we're going to continue kind of our new interview series, is the way it's kind of played out here the last few episodes. And we're going to go back and visit with a longtime friend of mine. Now, many years ago, I say many years ago, there was a digital revolution at the beginning of 2000s. And we heard a lot of things like, the newspapers are dead! Long live the newspaper! And we found out the whole world was going digital. So my friend Jason jumped on the wagon. He figured out how to do this. He found a niche in the market, which is key, Success Chargers, as you identify where you're going to find your crazy, wild, amazing success. He found a niche that was underserved and built a digital website, a subscription-based site that covered sports for private and Christian high schools all across the state of Texas. But something amazing happened. Just a few years ago, he decided, you know what? He needed a change of pace. And he packed up his family and he moved away from Houston, Texas, the 4th most populous city in the United States. And he drove to rural Kansas to kick off his new business. That's right, folks. He purchased a print newspaper. I know, pick yourself up off the floor. A print newspaper. And I'll tell you what, folks, I had a chance to catch up with him just a couple of weeks ago while I was up in central Kansas visiting one of my aerospace manufacturing clients. And I sat down with Jason and had an incredible interview about why he made this decision to trade in his digital success for a print newspaper. I'm going to let him tell the story. Here's the interview with Jason Jump, publisher of the Kingman Leader Courier in Kingman, Kansas. Sitting in front of me is a longtime friend of mine. You know, we first met, I'm embarrassed to say this, Jason, about 30 years ago in about the 8th grade. And in a rural Oklahoma town of Ardmore, Oklahoma.
Ardmore, USA.
Ardmore, USA, right? Voted one of America's all-American cities at one point in time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know what they say about Ardmore today, but it's a great place to be from.
That's right, absolutely. Absolutely.
But we had a lot of growing up, but man, there has been a lot that has happened. We just got reconnected, I guess it was just a month or two ago, just earlier this spring, I guess, and I tracked you down, and you are living up here in a different world. So for our listeners, we're going to take a little journey today. And here in this digital world, you're probably not used to thinking about this, but sitting in front of me, folks, is a newspaper man.
That's right.
A newspaper man.
And never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd be a newspaper man.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. Let me just kind of read off. I did some quick research. I went out to see what the Pew Research Foundation had to say about newspapers. And now it's interesting because and we're going to talk about the type of paper that you have in the community that you serve as you go into that. But in looking at a study that kind of looks at some of the top tier newspapers, so these are looking at the big boys, which is a little different animal than I think you've got. And we're going to talk to that a little bit. But from 2012 to 2013, we saw a big drop of 22% of just weekday circulation. But surprisingly, that number was down in 2014, only about 4%.
Right.
From that number. It's kind of leveled off a little bit. And then the top tier papers seem to be feeling less of a blow, especially on their Sunday circulation. I think there's still something mysterious about that really 12-inch thick Sunday paper with all the inserts in it. Maybe people.
It's the coupons, baby.
There you go. There you go. Spoken like a true newspaper man. I remember my days back in Ardmore, Oklahoma. I would go down when our truck would come in. I worked at a Western auto store down on Main Street, and when our products would come in every week, about once a month, I guess, all the inserts would get delivered to us, and we would truck them on over. I'd throw them in the back of the delivery truck and take them to the Daily Ardmorite.
That's right.
And drop them off there, and that following Wednesday they'd show up in everybody's mailbox with all the special deals at the Western Auto.
That's the lifeblood of newspapers right there.
Yeah.
You were carrying it. I mean, you were carrying the lifeblood. I mean, it's as simple as that. It still is.
We're going to get into that because I want to know what's going on in the world. We're looking at Pew Research to kind of continue on. They said that print ad revenue is down about 5%, but about 3% of that's been replaced with digital income. These are big numbers, kind of a big look. But now you look at the big boys like New York Times, and they're playing in a whole different league.
Right.
But they're looking at an average weekday delivery of 650,000 or so actual paper copies being sold every day, going out versus 54 million unique visitors. I'm guessing you don't see that much traffic on your website.
Not in Kingman, America. No.
All right. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But it's interesting. We've kind of hinted to this, and what I'm really excited about here is, so much of what we hear today is how much we live in a digital world. It's 24-hour news cycle. It's social media driven. As we record this, we're almost a week removed from one of the most horrific social media disastrous / news coverage journalism events that's ever happened, I think, anywhere, where a fella gunned down some news journalists, television journalists, and he came close to live streaming it in first person on the internet, about as close as you could get on various social media platforms. A terrifying day. But that's the world we're living in today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's how immediate news can be. I mean, this guy kills 2 people, and within 2 hours, half the planet has seen a video of what it was like for this guy behind the gun.
Yeah.
That's unfathomable to me, even as much as 10 days ago.
Part of that is it's really scary, but the other part of that with technology is it's a two-edged sword, and it always has been. There's a really exciting part of that, in that there can be more accountability, there can be more oversight, but then you get those sides there where, you just basically see the inner workings of a crazy man. Yeah. And so it's always been, you got to take the good with the bad,
sure.
Especially in the media world. And thankfully, there seems to be a whole lot more good that's coming out of technology than there is bad. So we'll hope that trend continues.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And by the way, I don't think I actually properly introduced you. Sitting right here in front of me is the publisher, Jason Jump, and his wife, Stephanie. And you guys are the publishers of the Kingman Leader Courier in Kingman, Kansas.
Kingman, Kansas.
Just west of the greater Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, we're about 30 miles west of Wichita, Kansas.
Okay. Excellent. So when they talk about Midwest rural America,
that's us.
You're
We're
there.
right in the middle of it.
You're the guy, right? Describe for our listeners what Kingman, Kansas is like if you're driving through.
It really is a typical small town. You have one stoplight on the main highway that will take you out of town, or it'll take you down Main Street. It's a quaint downtown. We've still got the old-timey brick Main Street.
I love it.
It's awesome. A lot of the buildings are still the buildings that were built in the mid to late 1800s. It's just that typical small town downtown, which is really awesome to be a part of that. But it's really a fun community to be a part of, because everybody knows your name. The old saying.
Right.
It's true. It's true. And that in and of itself has good and bad connotations. But the good far outweighs the bad in that scenario as well.
So when we reconnected, I had really one question for you. Because it wasn't that long ago. How long ago did you guys buy this paper?
We're going on our 4th year.
Okay. So it was about 4 years ago, and just before you guys moved here to Kansas, you and I had reconnected, at least virtually,
Right.
Because we were both living in Houston, Texas, the Houston area.
Right.
I'm still there, although today I'm here in Wichita visiting with you, so I'm excited to be here. And when we sat down at down here in Old Town Wichita, we sat down at Bite Me Barbecue.
Right.
Right? So if you haven't been to Bite Me,
Oh, you got to go.
you got to go.
Got to go.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And no, I'm not cussing at my audience. I'm telling you, some darn good food can be had there. But I really had one question for you. And I said, what in the world possessed you to buy a newspaper? Because when we were talking and you were living in Houston, you were running an online media
Right.
Website.
Right.
Tell our listeners tell us what you were doing before, kind of how you got there, and then what happened that you flipped the switch and said, I'm going to Kingman, Kansas.
Right.
Population 3,100 people.
Exactly. For us, I got out of coaching about 12 or 13 years ago, and I got out in the middle of a year, and it was one of those things that school districts aren't going to be hiring. I thought, you got to do something. You can't just not work. And so, I said, I'm going to go back to my media roots, and got hooked up with a company that was doing some online media at that time, and was doing some freelance stuff for them. Did a little freelance stuff for a newspaper down in that area, and just thought, hey, I know what these guys are doing. There's no way, no reason why I can't do that for myself. And so we were called the Bayou City Christian Sports Network. We started in 2003. Basically what we did is, instead of print, we just did everything online. So all of our stories, all of our photos, it went onto a website. And then we had people come to our website, purchase a subscription, then they got access to our digital content. We covered schools from Conroe to Galveston, from Beaumont, Texas, over to Katy, Texas. We did that for about 5 years, and then we launched statewide, covered the entire state of Texas, started to include all private schools, and it became the Lone Star Christian Sports Network. There were years where we had over 300 schools across the state that we covered.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah,
I knew you knew
huge.
I knew you were busy.
Yeah.
It was the helicopter you were flying around
Exactly,
the
that's
state
right.
on.
I wish.
You and that one guy that's running for office that we're not
That's
going to
right.
talk about tonight.
But we had 4 conferences down in Texas that were just nothing but private schools. That shows you how big athletics is in Texas.
Wow.
But so we're doing all of this stuff online, and the biggest reason why I started that was because your typical print newspapers didn't have the space to dedicate to private schools. They had all of these public schools that they had to cover. So you had private school parents that wanted the same coverage, but they couldn't get it in print journalism. And it's simply because the print journalist at that time couldn't deliver it because they didn't have the space to put it in there. So we're doing all of this stuff online, and our space is unlimited, so we can cover everybody. And so we did football, we did basketball, we did girls basketball, we did tennis, we did golf, stuff that, you just never
Nobody
heard
covers
of
those
this
sports.
coverage. Exactly.
Particularly at the smaller private schools
Absolutely.
and Christian schools.
And it's because we had space. And we had people, that wanted to see their kids' pictures and their kids' names in some sort of print journalism. And so, and it's still going today. I mean, it's without me, but it's still going strong.
So you sold that enterprise when you left, or do you still maintain some ownership in
I
it?
still own it, but I don't have the day-to-day operations of it.
Okay.
So long story longer, we decided that...
He's a newspaper man with a lot of virtual space.
That's right.
Yeah.
We decided as a family that my wife wanted to be able to stay at home with our 3rd child. And while this was a great operation for a 2-income family. It wasn't a great operation for a 1-income family, and the reason being is midway through this business model, you finally got the print newspapers that started catching on to the online coverage.
Okay.
And so one of the big mistakes that your newspapers made was they saw all of this potential advertising money in this unlimited resource. And so they said, well, let's give our content away, because what we miss in subscriptions, we're going to make up in digital. So we started having to battle not only competing with the big guys, but we also had to compete with them giving their stuff away while we were still charging for it. And so that dynamic really started to play out in our last 2 or 3 years there. And so most of our income came in a totally separate way, as far as we're selling our photos that we take to parents and things like that. And so it just wasn't enough to sustain a family. And
what year was that when you started to notice that really sort of hit a tipping point where you could feel the model was shifting, you felt the big boys were kind of coming into your space? I mean, because there was a lot that happened between 2003 and today.
Oh, absolutely.
But where did you start to see that happen?
You could start to see them start dabbling in 2009, but then in 2010, 2011, they're really starting to creep in.
Okay.
And then, actually, yeah, it would have been 2011 is where they started going really strong.
So this wouldn't just be, like, for example, this Pew Research sort of singled out some unique things about the Houston Chronicle, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the market where you were, right?
Right.
But I'm guessing if you're statewide, you've got other metropolitan
Oh yeah,
papers
we're
as well.
competing with the Austin Statesman. We're competing with the Dallas Morning News, the Fort Worth Star Telegram, the newspaper in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but now we're starting to compete with all of the weekly newspapers that are around. So you have like the Katy Times and that local newspaper group that has all of those weeklies in all of those suburbs. We're competing with those guys, and the same style of group in Dallas and Austin and San Antonio.
So you went from having a handful of people that were curious what you might be doing to suddenly you had 50 or 60 competitors.
Oh yeah,
going for
least.
Or more
Yeah.
for the maybe hundreds.
Exactly.
Going for the same eyeballs.
Yeah.
So it kind of started with, it was basically that old model of just content curation is what it sounds like to me.
Absolutely.
It was, there was content available. It was a fragmented market. You saw an opportunity. The market hadn't yet caught up, and that's what's so cool. So many of our listeners, those of you that are out here listening to this, you're the ones that we talk about. That you're that square peg people are trying to jam in the round hole.
Absolutely.
Because you see the world differently, and
That's right.
When we first connected, and you were telling me about Lone Star Christian Sports Network, right? Did I get that right?
Right.
Okay, good.
Yep.
When you were telling me about it, I thought it was a brilliant idea, and you said, "Yeah, but the game's kind of changing. People are figuring this out." Now, people, I've been watching our hometown football team, the Houston Texans, been on HBO Hard Knocks this year.
Oh yeah.
So I'm getting into it. Finally, my 6th year of living in Houston, I'm finally decided. Listen, when I promptly announced I was going to be a Texans fan was 2 seasons ago, coming off a great year that we had, and we won every preseason game. And I said, I'm throwing the gauntlet down. I'm a Texans fan, and we lost every game that season.
Exactly. So we can blame it on you.
Yeah, you can blame it on me.
All right, I'll tell my son.
We got rid of the coach, the quarterback, and half the team. So I was a little more quiet with my announcement last year. But this year, watching behind the scenes with Hard Knocks, I feel like what's going on. But one thing that's interesting is now that I'm paying attention, okay, and pro sports are starting to pick up on this. I think even NASCAR picked up on the change when I remember the first time I was watching the race. I forget where it was. I believe it might have been Daytona. And Brad Keselowski gets out of his car, grabs his phone that was somehow in his fire suit, and he's standing on they stopped the race. It was a red flag, and there was a huge wreck. And he starts live tweeting from his car.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, about, hey, this, and he's sending pictures, and he's sending whatever. And it's like, all of a sudden, athletic events and competitions and sports of all kinds have become a first-person game.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you've got fans in the stands know what's going on. If everybody uses these same hashtags, I can sit at home and tell you play-by-play. I'm a graduate of Oklahoma State. We have a lot of Oklahoma State fans in Houston, but not as many as there are other schools down there. So we don't always get our games, although the last few seasons we've been pretty good. Go Pokes. But I'm so excited that we, if I'm ever somewhere remote, I can just watch the Twitter feed and I can tell you play-by-play what's going down with any game. None of that was available in 2003.
See, what we started doing when I left Texas is we were doing live updates from all of the games that we could get people to send us their scores.
Okay.
And we had a ticker box that ran on our website that got updated from the field wherever we were.
Right.
And it's just update after update after update after everybody scores.
And was there somebody manually sitting there updating those scores as they rolled in? That was you.
That was me.
He's raising his hand, ladies and gentlemen. If we had a video podcast, you would have loved it. It was
exactly.
like, hey,
that
folks, that's
man.
me.
That's me.
Yeah.
And so not only that, but you could sign up for updates that would get sent to your email box or as a message on your smartphone.
Okay.
So you could sign up for whatever team you wanted to follow. Say you wanted to follow every team in your district. Every time one of those updates went through, you got a email blast or you got a message on your cell phone. So you're sitting at, Northland Christian watching how Second Baptist did and Tomball Christian did,
wow.
or Lutheran, Tomball Lutheran. And so you just keep up with everybody. So, I mean, the technology that has come around for sports in general, I mean, it's unbelievable. It really makes it fun.
Wow, so you've really seen a lot happen. So,
oh, yeah.
So let me ask you, 4 years ago, you pack up the family, your wife, your 3 kids, you strap the dog in a crate on top like Mitt Romney and head off down the road. No, tell me you didn't do that.
I didn't do that. We didn't own a dog at that time.
At that time. Okay, good. That's good to know. But I'm having visions of the bad scene from a Vacation. But
exactly.
Sir, anyway, I won't quote it. Just go watch it again. You'll enjoy it. Midway 2012, you pack up the family and you move to rural Kansas. Now, you were living in a pretty populated suburb on the north side of Houston.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys just packed up, headed out. Any regrets?
No, none whatsoever.
That's so cool.
A regret is something that says that you wish that you wouldn't have done it. And I certainly don't regret our decision. Of course, there are things that are way different than what we had there. One of the nice things about being digital is you can do your business wherever you are, as long as you have a computer, a smartphone, and internet connection. When you're tied into an actual live product that people hold in their hands, you don't have that flexibility. So it's different. It's good, but there are things that I missed there, and there are things that I don't. There are things that I enjoy there that I didn't have there. So.
Sure. Yeah, anytime you move somewhere, it's just different, right? I mean,
exactly.
You and I grew up in a town of about 25,000 people, halfway between Oklahoma City and Dallas. And at the time, I think we probably both felt like, that world was a pretty good sized world.
Right. We've
since both lived in much bigger places, different places. And now you're in a place that's much smaller,
exactly,
right, than where we were.
Exactly.
And it's cool because as you sit here in front of me, I can see it in your eyes. There's an enthusiasm and an excitement. You're a guy that loves what he does, and that really, I think, speaks to where I want to take the next little piece of our conversation here. And the people that listen to this show are people who. They think differently. They see opportunity where other people see problems.
Right.
They maybe spot trends and new ideas ahead of other people. Or they look in one industry to find answers they can apply in their own industry and do some things differently.
Absolutely.
And much of what you described tonight, I think, people probably didn't see social media. Nobody used the term social media in 2003.
Oh, absolutely.
You could send a text message. A what? Well, you remember, and even around that time, it was a one-way text message.
Exactly.
You could push, but you could read news on a pager.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Now, if anybody has a pager, they're either a surgeon or a drug dealer.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
You kind of got to wonder.
And even drug dealers now have gone to just a burner phone, the throwaway. Sorry,
They've upgraded.
It's not a show on crime, folks. We're just talking about how things get done.
That's right.
But let me ask you, because the community paper, particularly in a rural market like the one that you primarily serve of, Kingman County, Kansas. By the way, again, the newspaper. I'm sitting here with Jason Jump from the Kingman Leader Courier. You can find them online at the Kingman County News, which is KCN, Kingman County News. Catchy. Yep. KCNonline.com. Go out there and check them out. You said to me before, the people in the community, they like their local paper.
Oh, absolutely.
They love their paper. Tell me what that means to the people in the community that you serve. What are you hearing from your readers?
Well, and this is something that is not unique to Kingman, Kansas. This is any rural community that you go to that still has a newspaper in their community. And you'll even hear this from people that have lost their newspaper and how bad they want it back. I mean, there's just people that live for their newspaper. I know my wife, we were talking about this just a couple of days ago. I mean, she remembers her grandfather. And the day the newspaper would get mailed, he knew when it was. He knew exactly when it would be in the mailbox. And if somebody hadn't gotten his paper, I mean, he's going to let you know about it.
Yeah.
I mean, because they just live for that newspaper. We have people that we call them walk-in subscribers. They walk in and get their paper instead of having it mailed because they wanted a day before it would get delivered to them by the mail. So they walk in. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's snowing. And, I mean, we have people that you look at them and you say, you should not be out on the roads. But they are there as soon as the door opens to get their newspaper every week.
You got this 87-year-old farmer with his farm truck, he's not even supposed to be off his farm because he's using the wrong kind of diesel.
Exactly.
And it's a 4x4 that's all beat to all you-know-what. And he shows up to get his paper because, by God, there's nothing else to do today.
That's right.
I'm going to read my paper.
Absolutely.
And I got to have something tomorrow to start the fire with in the
That's
fireplace.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
It's funny. You make me think. You talk about those walk-in subscribers, and I think about my own dad. My parents have been retired for a number of years now, but recently relocated from a rural southern Oklahoma town, not the one we grew up in, but one not far from there.
We won't mention their name either.
No, we won't. They were. That's right, rival high school. Even though my brother went there, and I still don't talk to my brother to this day. That's not true. I love my brother. He's a great guy. I just talked to him the other day. He's doing great. But when my parents moved to a suburb on the north side of Dallas, and my mom's excited about it. She's very much into art, and they're excited about having better grocery stores and access to more health care and a lot of things that people as you get older put a lot of thought into. And
absolutely. That
has absolutely been the right move for them. It's been great. Now my dad's still getting adjusted to having to talk to a homeowners association before he can do anything. And he thinks everybody in the backyard has a deer stand, and I keep telling him, Dad, they're just playgrounds. But he thinks, he's like, why is everybody trying to look in my windows?
That's right.
And I tell him, Dad, you're 74 years old, they're only going to look once.
Yeah, they don't care.
They're only looking once, and they'll never look again. But the the thing that's funny about my dad is that about a year ago, he bought a new pickup because he still had to have a truck. It was driving him nuts to be in a city and not have a truck. He sold it when he moved to the suburbs, and he said, nope, I got to have a truck. So he bought a truck, and in a year, I think he's put less than 5,000 miles on it.
Oh, wow.
And I would venture to guess that most of those miles are driving a mile and a half to and from the CVS pharmacy up the street from his neighborhood, where he walks in, quarters in hand, and pays for his newspaper, picks it up himself, and comes home in the morning.
Wow.
And that's part of his routine.
Gotcha.
It's part of what he does.
Right.
And that's really what you're describing. My dad is now in a metropolitan area. I've reminded him, Dad, they deliver that and throw it right at the end of your mailbox or right at the end of your... They don't even mail it to you.
That's right. No,
Some guy chucks it out his window
exactly.
at 4 a.m. and
That's
it lands in your driveway. And whenever you get up with that first pot of coffee, it's right there. And he says, son, I like the routine of going to get my paper. That's just something that's in his life. So let me ask this question. What do you know about the demographics of your subscribers?
Well, you hit it right there. I mean, it's our parents' age It's their parents' age, those people that are still living, that's all they've ever known. You know, those people are starting to just kind of dabble into digital. They're still not extremely comfortable with it. You especially saw this in a place like Kingman. For example, when we moved to Kingman, I'm looking at my phone, and this is when we definitely had 3G. It was going strong, and we were starting to get into the LTE 4G area, and Kingman was still on the edge, the E, and I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing? I will never survive.
Yeah.
But that's the world that they've always known, you know, and so they're just now starting to get into some of that stuff. So the newspaper is something they've known their entire life, and it is routine. They're just used to having it, and they're used to having it in that format.
I just made a note, and I hope I edit this in. I'm going to find the audio of what it sounds like when you dial in on a modem.
Exactly.
For those of you that remember what that sounds like.
Exactly.
You know, my dad thought he was big time. And before people would just post things to YouTube and send a link around, I remember my dad would get a little video clip, somebody would email him, and he had a second phone line at his house out in the country, and he would send me the email that somebody sent to him, and it would take 3 days to upload it before it would finally get to me. 3 days after he called me and told me all about it, it would show up in my mailbox. And of course, it was coming in my house on a DSL or cable modem line or something. And he was big time when he went to satellite internet. Right?
Oh,
that was a big deal. You know, you're right. So, what can you tell me about circulation? And you, to the extent you want to talk about the numbers, I think some of our listeners would be interested to hear that about, you know, your paper versus you do have an online component.
Right.
Do you feel comfortable talking about that? You want to skip it?
Oh, absolutely. No.
Okay.
Absolutely. I always jokingly say our subscribers are great, but they're dying off.
Okay.
And I mean that literally.
We hear that a lot about print.
We lose subscribers not because they don't like our product, because they are literally dead. And that's what I mean when I say they're dying off. I mean literally, they are dying.
So the last time these people find themselves in the paper, it's their own obituary.
Exactly.
Right.
And oddly enough, that is one of the primary things that people read when they read the newspaper is the obituaries. And that's across the board in small towns. I just went and visited my grandma in southeastern Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And that's what they talked about when they talked about the newspaper is they were talking about the obituaries and how this particular paper, they're putting people's obituaries in that aren't from that community and don't have ties to that community, and they're just reading the paper going, who are these people? We don't know these people. We don't know their family. Why are they in the newspaper? But
we're starting to get obits off the wire now.
Exactly.
So, interesting.
No, but circulation, that was one of the scary things about making the decision to go into print journalism.
Sure.
Was, are we going to be able to survive as a medium? Because there is so much transition. And especially for the rural communities, I don't think there's any danger in the next 10 to 15 years. The real question is going to be, are we going to be able to start replacing some of these people they literally, I'm not trying to be mean,
no.
They literally are dying off. Are we going to be able to replace those with younger generation? And all of the experts, for the past couple of years at least, have been saying no. Young people don't read newspapers. They don't read books.
That's what we hear, yeah.
But
that's what my early research was telling me the same thing.
You're starting to see that trend shift a little bit, and they're saying, wait a minute. It's not necessarily bad research that they did, but maybe the trend's not quite as steep as we thought it was. And so I'm always very encouraged. I just had a lady come in probably 2 days ago, and she was probably in her mid-40s, early 50s, which I would consider to be one of those tweeny age groups, that would start to see that shift. She says, I got to have my paper. I got to hold it in my hands. That's what I love. And of course, for me as a business person, I'm saying, right on. We need more people like that. So we'll see about the younger generation. Our kids are going to grow up in a totally different world than what we did.
My 3-year-old has her own media pad.
Exactly. I mean, yeah.
With a Wi-Fi and a cellular connection.
Exactly.
She's watching YouTube videos of people unwrapping toys.
Exactly.
Driving home from school.
Yep.
In the backseat of mom's car.
Exactly.
Right?
But it's even in our education system. My daughter's in 4th grade. She got her notebook, and she's saying we're taking our spelling test on the computer. I'm thinking, I never dreamt of a world where we're going to take spelling tests on a computer.
Right.
But that's the world that they're growing up in. So are we going to be able to hold on to those people? Well, that's the big question mark. But we serve a county of around 7,000 people. We have 3 newspapers in our county.
Okay.
We are the county seat there in Kingman. And
are you the largest of the 3 papers?
We are the largest of the 3.
Okay.
And we have a circulation of 2,200 is what we print each and every week. So then you look at our online component, kcnonline.com, and we've really been able to kick that up in the last couple of years. And like I said, it's been a growing process because people just haven't been used to that type of medium.
Yeah.
And so
particularly at the local level.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're starting out with a couple of hits here, a couple of hits there. So we built it up to where we've set records this year probably 3 times, and we're close to 5,000 unique visitors a month, which doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about the New York Times, which
Sure.
you mentioned before. But a place like Kingman, who is just 3 years removed from being on the Edge network, I mean, 5,000 unique visitors.
Really slow data.
Yeah.
It's like 2 cans with a piece of string between them.
Exactly. So it's been remarkable to see that jump and how people have latched onto that. And an example of that, a guy shared with me how excited he was because I'd go to city commission meetings, and for example, we had a guest bassoonist who is one of the top bassoonists in all of the state of Kansas, probably this region. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And so he played the national anthem prior to a city commission meeting. Well, I take my phone out, take a snapshot of him playing his bassoon at the city commission meeting, and I post it to our Facebook page while the city commission meeting's going on. And then the next day, I had somebody make mention, it's really cool to be able to see those type of things come out even before the meeting's over with. I mean, that's how instantaneous,
You're
even at our level.
You're having to reprogram the expectations of your own viewer base, your own connections, your own people.
Right.
And some of the experiences that you're having here in Kingman, sounds to me are reminiscent of what you started to see happen when you started covering high school sports for private and Christian schools.
Exactly.
In a fresh way.
Exactly.
So leverage
We're doing
technology.
it all over again.
So this is interesting because it sounds to me too, so you need a couple things. I think you need to find a couple of hipsters to move to your town and ride some old school Schwinn bikes with a basket on the front to throw papers for you while they're drinking their craft beer and smoking their e-cigs or whatever they do. And I have to call my nephew. He's a little more tuned into the hipster community than me. But all while they're listening to Mumford and Sons or
That's
something,
right.
to play along. And so we'll have some fun with that. But you're in all seriousness, it's a culture shift.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be the bleeding edge technology. It doesn't even necessarily sounds like have to be cutting edge technology, but someone who's had an experience living in a larger city. One of the things that my parents, and maybe yours said something similar, but I know my parents had said, and I wish they'd pushed me a little harder sometimes. They said, you should go to the biggest city you can stand to live in and go to work for the biggest company you can stand to work for, because you can always come back and be the big fish in the small pond.
Right.
And I think there's a lesson in that because you took a risk. You moved from the 4th largest, most populous metropolitan area in the U.S. to somewhere much farther down that list.
Way down that list.
Right. Now, having one of the top bassoonists in the state of Kansas begs the question, how many bassoonists are there in the state of Kansas?
That is a good question, but I mean...
But you do have, but you got Kansas City. The Kansas City metro area is
Wichita,
a very, very cool
Topeka.
place. Wichita, the air capital of the world, right? Some of the, if you're serious and you're in the aviation business, you've got a presence right here.
Absolutely.
Koch Industries, a lot of folks have heard of the Koch brothers.
Absolutely.
You don't think about it, but they're right here in middle America.
That's right.
Right smack dab in the middle of Wichita. This is their town.
That's right. It is their town. In more ways than one.
Well, we won't go there, but please don't come hunt us down,
That's
Koch
right.
brothers. We're just two guys in a Panera making a podcast. Could other people, would you encourage them? If you're pretty good at something, you started as a freelancer, you learned how papers curated information, you learned the journalism business, you said, hey, I could do this. You found a niche, the timing was right, you proved your concept, and then, to go after the private schools, a market that wasn't being covered, technology catches up, and you start thinking about the lifestyle.
Right.
The lifestyle choice. A lot of people are caught in that rat race, two-income families, doing all they can. Listen, you live in a big city, you live in a small city, but you live in a big city, and you have two people with decent paying jobs. You've got a healthy six-figure household income. And a lot of families are finding it that you're just trying to pay the bills every month.
Right.
And it's hard to put money in savings. And these aren't people that are living extravagant lifestyles.
Absolutely.
This is the cost of living today.
Yeah.
My last car cost more than my parents' first house.
Exactly.
Right? So that wasn't that long ago. I'm only 42 years old.
Right.
So I sit here today, right? Would you encourage people to move back to the rural communities and bring some of these ideas and experiences they've had in bigger places and kind of do what you've done?
I think that we see a small shift in people wanting to move back, but the problem is they want to move back simply because they want to get out of the rat race, but they're still in the rat race. They just don't live in it.
Okay.
And so there's a big difference between coming back and being plugged in, and for your listeners, being connected to your community,
Yeah.
and being a bedroom community. And so we see a lot of bedroom communities popping up because they don't want the hustle and bustle of downtown life or suburban life, but they're really not connected into rural life, if that makes sense.
It does. So do you see people now in the Kingman area that are commuting into Wichita?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But they like to come home where if they have a spouse that's at home with the kids, which I'm that one in our house, right? My wife goes to her job. She has a full-time job, goes to an office every day, and does her job as a data analyst. I, on the other hand, if I'm not out traveling and doing stuff like this, I office out of the house. So
right.
but I'm not a stay-at-home dad because we still send our daughter to daycare because my travel schedule's bananas, and she
right.
goes every day. So if you want that strawberry banana, it's all ready for you
It's
now.
ready to go, baby.
Yeah. If you're going to go back to live in a small town, go back to live in the small town.
Yeah. Go back to be a part of the town.
Be a part of the town. Take an active role. You jumped into what is really that you are the connector. You play a big role as a connector. Let's say you're probably not the only one. And folks, I'm going to have on a upcoming broadcast or podcast, excuse me, an upcoming episode, a friend of mine who is now the. She doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to announce it today. We're going to do an interview because she is now the president of the Chamber of Commerce in a rural town down in Texas, and she came in as the outsider. You're going to want to hear her story because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said, Jason. She walked in saying, I know this is where things get done, and they said, we need somebody that thinks like you. She went in to join the chamber, and she walked out with a job.
Yeah.
Small towns need people to make those connections.
Desperately need people to do that. I was part of the chamber there in Kingman, and I mean that's something that when I first got involved, they started off immediately. I mean, it's the same handful of people that do everything in town. And a lot of it is because your older generation is to the point they're saying, okay, we've served our time, we've done our thing. Now it's time for somebody else to pick up the gauntlet. But the people that are there and are able to pick up the gauntlet are the people that are commuting, and they're not the ones that are connected in there.
Okay.
So desperately need people that are coming back to be part of the community, and not just make it a place where you sleep at night.
So these rural communities, they can smell it a mile away. If somebody comes in from outside to maybe, there's a delicate balance, let's put it that way.
Sure.
Which somebody who wants to provide a good or a service that's perhaps not available today in that market. But there's a big difference between, let's say, that financial advisor who has an office and they come there 2 days a week,
absolutely,
but they live somewhere else, versus that person who opens an office and lives in their town.
Absolutely. That you see at the grocery store, and that you see it at church.
See them at church on Sundays and the whole thing, right?
In the park walking in the mornings,
walking
their
kids.
Dog at night, their kids.
Yeah.
You're going to the junior high athletic games, or the Saturday mornings when you got little league soccer going on. Yeah. That's the connections right there.
Okay. So the lesson here is, if you're going to go back, go all in.
Go all in, yeah.
But you don't have any regrets. It's been the right lifestyle
not.
choice for you, for your family. It's not for everybody.
No.
And that's really cool. So let me ask you this: as a newspaper man, I want to leave it here, because we've got a lot of folks that do have a lot to offer, and recognize that communities like yours that you represent may be underserved, with being exposed to where they can ask questions about, well, could I run a business? Could I do some things? I mean, look, my office is anywhere I have an internet connection and my laptop and a cell phone.
That's right.
And really, if I just have one of those three things, I'm probably okay. So I could do my business from anywhere, but what you're talking about is different. It's being in the community. But what can, my folks are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, what I call employeepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
They're people that work inside of a company, but they've got that mindset like you and I. Like,
right.
They're wired a little different.
Right.
You were wired different. When you were working for this other firm, you were taking notes. You were not just learning, what do I need to do to keep my job? You were saying, how do they do this?
Right.
You wanted to know how the sausage was made.
Exactly.
And now you own the sausage factory.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And a lot of people will be looking for a job, and you've built a career and a lifestyle for your family.
Right.
In a world that people are saying it's harder and harder and harder to find that. You go, no, it's there.
Yeah.
But how could our listeners that genuinely say, okay, can they get involved with a newspaper like yours? Could they provide content? Could they provide a service? Is there anything that they could be doing? Or would you encourage them to just think about how they could look differently at their own business? What would be your advice to somebody who says, kind of scratching their head going, you know what, I grew up in a small town and the rat race is kind of getting to me. They might be having that thought that you and your wife had. What would you encourage them to think about?
Well, I mean, it's so cliche, but it's so true today as it ever has been before. And that is, find something you love to do and then learn how to get paid to do it. And then you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, it is so cliche, but it's so true. And technology has made it such that there's so many things that you can do within whatever it is that you're into.
Yeah.
You're not limited to making widgets anymore. I mean, in my business, you have blogs about how they make the widgets, or
right.
You have videos on how they make the widgets.
Yeah. There's a YouTube video for everything.
There's a YouTube video for everything. I mean, there's so much specialization, and it's all because people are interested in it. A good friend of ours, I don't know how much money he made because he said, I bought a vehicle, I went online, and I couldn't find anything about the vehicle I bought. So he started a bulletin board about 10 years ago. And he makes unbelievable amounts of advertising money while he works a different job. I mean, he's raking in this money simply because there wasn't any online resource about this particular vehicle. I mean, so there's just all kinds of stuff that you can do, but it's just finding what you're into, and then finding that niche of meeting somebody's need that's not currently being met, and then you just got to do it. I mean, you can think about it and you can analyze it, but at the end of the day, you've got to do it. There's always going to be risk. There's always going to be a reason not to do it, but at some point you just got to say, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. Let's give it a go. It may work, it may not, and so yeah, I'll find what you love to do and then find a way to get paid for it. You'll never work a day in your life.
That's so cool. I can't think of a better way to end it right here.
Absolutely.
Jason,
it's
thank
awesome.
you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a lot of fun, my friend.
Yeah, it has.
All right, folks, from right here in Wichita, Kansas, just down the road from the beautiful city of Kingman. I'm going to make it to Kingman.
Yes, you will.
I'm going to come out there. I'm going to see what it's all about. I want to see those old buildings that are downtown.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Take it in. Hey, for those of you listening, in the show notes, I'm going to put a link back to the website, and I do have a photograph that I'm going to put up. That's of me and of Jason and another schoolmate of ours when we were back in high school.
Oh, I'm thinking that I know which one it's going to be.
Yeah. See, the real connection here is that Jason actually married me to my first wife. Well, sort of. Who actually has an amazing success story of her own to tell.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that we'll get Lori on the show sometime soon as well. But we're going to put that picture up, and you're going to see it in the High School Musical our senior year. I was Lil Abner, and
Mary and Sam.
Yeah, Mary and Sam. That's right. The preacher there that married me to Daisy May.
That's right.
And made her a yokum. And
oh goodness,
that was a long time ago, my friend. It definitely was. So with that visual, folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for enjoying the episode. Man, we've talked everything from crazy high school musicals to rural community newspapers and the future of digital media.
That's right.
And really how to find yourself in this crazy 24-hour media cycle and get back to what you love. But I love it. I love the way you said it right there at the end. You find what you love to do, figure out how to get paid to do it. You'll never work another day in your life.
That's right.
And there you go, Success Chargers. Some wise words from our friend Jason Jump at the Kingman Leader Courier and KCNonline.com. Certainly check the show notes. We'll have some links back to some of the sites where you can get in touch with Jason, where you can follow him, where you can follow the show. And oh yeah, I promised a photo. You're going to have that as well of me and Jason from back in the day. So you'll get to see him as Mary and Sam and embarrassingly me as Little Abner. So listen, we're really glad that you stuck with us for the show today. And again, a sincere thank you for those of you that have been sharing the word. Now, I appreciate those that have stopped by at iTunes.com and dropped off your 5-star review. It certainly means a lot to me. It means a lot to our listeners. And it tells us that we're doing what you need to know to find success, however you define it. So until next time, I hope that you'll let us hear from you. Let us know what you liked about the show. Drop off some comments on the website. Stop by, email us at podcast@ideacharger.com. That's podcast@ideacharger.com. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear, topics you've got, ideas for people that you would like for us to interview, and get them on the show. Love to hear from you, folks. We'll see you next time. This is Scott. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please post your 5-star review and subscribe to Success Charger today. Your future is waiting.